20 seconds. Okay. Ready? All right. Good morning, everybody. Started just a few minutes late. We had a few people that said they're on their way and or will be signing up. Oh, a couple did. All right. A couple are on our Zoom link. We have Colleen LaPlante and Milos. I won't even say his last name. What's his last name, Fazil? Okay, Milos from Fort Lauderdale. So we thank everybody for being here. This is the last meeting on our calendars for the Oversight Committee. And at the end, we will talk to you a little bit about the future, that once the plan is complete, we need to do annual reporting to the feds. And with that, we need an Oversight Committee to review our annual report. So just because you signed up for this committee, you're not obligated to sign up and come every year in the future, but we want to talk about who would want to be part of that. So we'll have that conversation in a bit. I'm James Cormer. I'm a Deputy Executive Director at the Broward MPO and Project Manager on the MPO side for the Broward Safety Action Plan. We have Tony Huey, who is the Project Manager from the county side. The county's our partner as we go forward. I don't know if you want to say anything, Tony. Just hello. All right. Our agenda today, then, we're covering some items that I don't think maybe some of you have seen it, but this is information that we've been sharing about the Broward Safety Action Plan Executive Plan, that we sent you some information last month, and the MPO board approved it in April, last week. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to have Fazil then do a live demo of our safety dashboard. We think it's a really exciting tool and hope it can be useful for you. We have Ren Ruiz from Urban Health Partnerships to talk about our community engagement process. Then Christine Fanchi, our consultant lead, will be talking about the path to adoption for the Broward Safety Action Plan, and then also the path to implementation. So we want to give you a broad overview of what all your work has led to over the last year and a half. Does anybody have any comments that they want to share for the good of the group before we get started? Okay. And we'll give you, hey, Katie. See, Katie was traveling, so I hope it looks like she got here safely. Okay, but at least safe, so. Well, let me give an overview then of the Broward Safety Action Plan Executive Plan. As I mentioned, this document, it went to our board. One of the reasons that we took it to our board now in April as opposed to the fall is that we needed to have an eligible safety action plan that was approved by elected officials or board, so that our partners in Broward could be eligible to pursue implementation grants. And Tony is leading a team with Broward County where they will be pursuing an implementation grant for work on Northwest 31st Avenue. And so this is one of those steps that we needed to go through to make that happen. And it also opens up opportunities for our other partners this year and next year. Reminder about the Safety Action Plan. We received a grant to develop a data-driven plan. So it's based on the data that are available, recognizing that the data aren't perfect, but it's what we have, and making best use of that. An action-oriented plan, so making sure that we're moving toward implementation, not just good ideas. So there's some give and take and wrestling about, here's a good idea, but is it feasible? How do we make it feasible? What do we need to adjust to make it happen? And then the overall idea is to reduce severe injuries and traffic fatalities to zero in Broward. Again, safety, focusing on what we call KSIs, killed and serious injuries on our roadways. $5 million grant, one of the largest in the nation for the first round. Broward MPO administers the grant, and the county is providing a local match in terms of in-kind services on 3 studies. And you've heard about some of those, about a near-miss study, intersection study, and also the multimodal, what's the other M, Fazil? Multimodal mobility plan. Yeah, dealing with low stress and bike and ped improvements. The three outcomes, we're creating an action plan, which we've done, and that has a defined goal. So a set year and a milestone to strive to reduce death and serious injury on the roadways, identifying projects moving in toward funding and implementation, and then also identifying policies and programs to help improve safety. So we touch on all those in the document. Rather than go through every page of the document, I wanted to give you then just an overview of what is in the plan itself. There are 8 items on the eligibility checklist that we need to provide to the feds. We would have to have that into them before May, and then the grant application is due in June. And so on the right column, you see what those eligibility elements are. And then on the left, the table of contents of the plan. And then we've created a crosswalk so that the federal reviewers can see easily, hey, item number 1, it's on pages 1 and 3, making it easy for them to see that we have achieved the plan and what it is that we need to do. And so with that, just to give you an overview of the plan itself, I'm going to go through each of the elements briefly and then see if you have any questions. So first off, the first element is leadership commitment and goal setting. So we needed approval from a body of elected officials. So that's the MPO board that did the approval on April 10th. Goal setting, we have set a goal of trying to reach 0 by the year 2050. This is in line with some national and state and regional goals. And we recognize that it will be difficult, but it requires a holistic approach. It's not one solution is going to solve everything, but it's a combination of small improvements, larger capital improvements, technologies, people shifting in their modes, and different speed reduction strategies. So each of these can contribute to helping us reduce to 0 our death and serious injury rate. Second element is the planning structure. That picture there is almost an echo of what we have happening today. You as the Oversight Committee, and then we also had a technical working group that met regularly to help guide the development of the plan. The technical working group met monthly, is meeting monthly and dealing with the details, the nuts and bolts of the plan itself. And then the Oversight Committee, which you are, provide high-level direction as we move forward. And you also represent a variety of different perspectives. So it's not just our transportation professionals, but we also have health professionals, law enforcement, community groups, businesses, and such. Third element is the safety analysis. So again, working with the data that we have, we look to see where crashes and serious injuries are occurring, developed a high injury network that accounts for about 77% of the death and serious injury on 6% of our roadways. So that helps provide a focus for where we need to look at doing improvements. We also developed a high risk network that looks at characteristics of the corridors and identified segments such as 6-lane or with the speed limit between 40 and 45 that have shown to have death and serious injury in certain places. Not always on the high risk network have they, but it gives us an idea of places we might want to look to do some improvements. We use those 2 lists to develop prioritization of 11 different corridor segments that were a variety of state, county, and local roads and different configurations, 6-lane, 4-lane, 3-lane. And so that helps us to develop some template ideas of potential improvements that could apply elsewhere throughout the county. And then we also use the safety analysis on focus plans, 8 different focus plans that talk about a variety of different things: rail crossings, school zones, traffic in neighborhoods, crashes in neighborhoods, mid-blocks, lighting, all of those different things. And they informed the projects, policies, and programs that the plan recommends. In terms of policy and process changes, then we use the SAFE system approach. If anybody is paying really close attention, they'll notice that we're now talking about safer people, not just safer vehicles, safer speeds. In January, the federal website made that adjustment. And so we want to recognize that. But the point being that there is not one solution that will solve all the problems. It's a combination of all these different things together. So that's the approach that we've tried to take. We might focus and talk about one element, but understand that we're looking at redundancy in the system so that the safety is overall more likely for the different road users, the different vehicles and such. And we'll talk a little bit more about post-crash care later today. Another element is strategy and project selection. So as I mentioned, we've come up with different recommendations, and the point of doing an action-oriented plan is not just to come up with ideas, but to figure out how to implement them. And so we've looked at what are the different funding sources available at the state, federal, local level, maybe private developers, as they do improvements, they can come in and help fund some of the different safety needs. And then, again, figuring out who needs to do it. We have project recommendations based on our priority corridors and the 8 different focus plans. There's an example here on the screen of some recommendations from the rail safety plan, recognizing that people are already working on rail safety. And so we look to make recommendations that go above and beyond that. And then a positive note, one of the recommendations for improved fencing between Hardy Park and Fort Lauderdale on the FEC tracks. The city is moving ahead with that improvement, independent of the safety action plan. So Milos and team, thank you for having that move forward. Previously, there was no fence between the tracks and the park and potential safety issues there. So there will be fencing to separate the users there. The next to last element is agency and collaboration. We have a 4-phase public outreach approach. We started off doing social media and other outreach with statistics about safety and also tips for people to move more safely. We started in August, September, October with the first round of public meetings based on the 11 priority corridors, direct outreach and public workshops and communications with agency and public perspectives. We did then an evaluation, that was the phase 3, to see what was working, what could we do better, applied some of those concepts. And then in phase 4 is more extensive public outreach. So we had a second round of public meetings in February. Ren will talk a little bit more about our safety roadshow that we want to go out to the public all throughout Broward, hitting the areas that we didn't hit previously with the 11 priority corridors, and then also developing some technical training for transportation professionals. And then we also have progress and transparency. So once the plan is done, we need to make sure that we make it available on our website, and we have additional information that we want the public to be able to see. Each year, we need to do a report card to report to our federal partners our progress in our safety goals. And so we've developed criteria based on how well we're moving toward implementation and how well we are doing toward reducing death and serious injuries on the roadways. And then finally, we have a safety dashboard, and Fazla is going to give you a display of that. So I won't say that much about it here, but we think it's a great tool, provides ways that people can look at safety at a holistic level or at a site-specific level. There's a menu on the left that allows you to select cities, dates, time of day, type of crash. And then on the right, you can get the crash report for a particular location. And then we also needed, then the final element was to have an approved plan. And so we have that data that came through. So with the plan done, we still have time in our contract with WSP, and we have additional things that we need to do. So we're going to continue to finalize the action plans, working with our partners at Broward County and FDOT and local agencies to make sure that the recommendations for policies and programs are what they can support and are implementable. We're doing a policy analysis, so we'll have recommendations for our local governments on what they can do to help strengthen any safety and Vision Zero type traffic and roadway policies. We're developing the dashboard you see in the report card. Over the summer, the county will be applying for the implementation grant. Christine will talk a little bit about, I think today you're talking about the corridor plans. So to let you know what's coming out of those 11 priority corridors. Additional things are our quick build guide, a safe street design manual, 1,000 little things, some spot improvements that can happen quickly. And then we will have the roadshow and the professional practitioner training. So with that, I just want to see if you have any questions. We appreciate all the support you gave. Just so you know, when we did send out the safety action plan for comment, we received over 400 individual comments. We considered all of them. Marianne, I think you provided some. I think Ken's not here today, but he provided some. Mintang, of course. And we considered all the comments. We weren't able necessarily to do what everybody requested because some things were contradictory or weren't necessarily in line with what we were trying to achieve, but we were able to modify that plan. We prepared it to take it to our board on April 10th, had it all ready on a Friday afternoon, and Friday evening, the federal partners at U.S. Department of Transportation issued the notice of funding opportunity for the 2025 Safe Streets for All funding cycle, which then required us to go in and do some revisions of the plan to be in line with what they were asking for. So it was a struggle, but we made it through. So thanks to everyone.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Well, to you also for participating. So, does anybody have any questions before we go to the dashboard? Okay, then Fazal, if you can take us to the dashboard.
All right. This is working, so that's good. All right. Share my screen. Share my.
While we're waiting for Faisal to get the presentation online, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to James and Faisal and the rest of the MPO staff for the leadership that they have displayed over the last year and a half, and then of all the tremendous amount of work and especially last minute work that they have had to do in order to get this executive plan approved. And it's their efforts and their leadership is much appreciated, and I want to thank them for their great effort on our part. Thank you, guys.
And I want to make sure to thank everybody, though. It's been a teamwork effort. And now Tony and team, though, not that they haven't been doing a heavy lift, but now they have a heavier lift to get that grant application in. So whatever support we can give there too. Because that's part of the point, is to not just plan, but to get things done. Fazal?
All right. All right. So first off, everyone knows how to get to our website, right?
Yes.
savestreetsforbroward.org, right? Of course. So good thing is you don't have to remember Broward's dash safety dash action dash plan dash whatever else. All right. So once you get to our website, I'm just gonna go over just a few updates that we've made recently. First off, you can if there's anyone from your local agency, or if you're interested in reading what the final plan looks like, which hopefully you all are, we do have the link directly on our homepage. We did make some modifications to try to make it easier for you all to access or for you all to promote the safety pledge and some of those other things. But we also have a new video that we created that you can see on the screen here on the middle right. This is where people can put in their safety concerns. You can just click explore rather than have to go to the tab and then scroll down. Same with the safety pledge and our hearts dedication. So with that, let me go over to see what you all will think is exciting. So this is our safety dashboard. So if you scroll down, there's some information regarding the safety dashboard itself. Strongly recommend you don't use a mobile device. It will not show in a very friendly manner. You won't really be able to see anything because there's so much information on here. And once you get through the disclaimer, right there. Okay, so the way our dashboard is set up, it's on the top of the screen, there's statistics regarding the KSIs and the different modes. And underneath those are how many people were either killed or seriously injured. Not so much the crashes, but the actual number of people. And then the same thing at the bottom. So on the bottom, there are some contributing factor statistics. You'll see 4 boxes here, and each one of these have a different tabs for other types of statistics, like aggressive driving and speeding are kind of paired together. For the hit and run crashes, there's these arrows on the right and left of them, so you can flip through the different layers. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so here, this is what I was talking about, that you can flip through some of these other related statistics. Now on the right side here, you have your you have 2 sets of charts. On the top are kind of like the ones related to time, so you can look at the severity by crashes, or the severity of the different types of crashes by year, by month, and also by time of day versus day of week. And if you hover over some of these, you can see the other numbers, like the The 2% of our crashes are pretty small compared to the rest of them. Then down here, this is where you have crashes by crash type as well as the posted speed versus number of limits. So the reason why I want to go through all of these first before I go over the map here, it's all of these stats that you see on the screen, they will update depending upon the filters you click on the left here. So, so before I get to that, so this is the map. And this is how it looks like right now. So, when you're zoomed out to a certain extent, you're only able to see the KSI crashes for motor vehicles, pedestrians, motorcyclists, and bicycle crashes. If you zoom into the map, you're going to see these blue dots pop up. Now, these blue dots, they represent the non-KSI crashes. It's not that they're not important, it's just that you can imagine how many other crashes we have and you wouldn't really be able to see anything. But all this information is here. Regardless if you click on the blue dot or any of these icons, if you click on this, the blue dot, you'll see this is the crash report information. Regarding them, you can also flick through them if there's overlapping ones. You're able to do that, and you're able to do the same thing for that's here. Oh, there it is. Okay. And you can get the same information if you click on a KSI crash as well. Okay, then I guess if you click on this X, it will clear it back. Okay, you also have the heat map here. So this heat map will also update depending upon what you use as a filter over here. So right now the heat map, it's based upon all types of crashes. As you'll see here on the left, there's a severity, the crash severity type. Now you are able to change the base map of these if you are interested. So I'll go to individual crashes first. If you do this drop-down menu, over here on the top right, there's a legend. There's also the different layers that are selected, as well as the base map. So for base map's sake, if you not able to tell exactly where a certain type of crash was coded, you can go here, you can zoom in, and you can visually see where on the roadway network a specific type of collision occurred, or where it was coded at least. Underneath here, the legend, this is some of the same information as presented that's here. And you can do the same thing for the heat map as well. So I'm just going to go back to the base map, turn on. Okay. Now all these things on the left. So currently, as of right now, the only filters that are selected are is to not include limited access crashes, as well as to not include any private road and parking lot crashes. But the good thing is you can turn those on if you would like to see them. So for instance, if we were to click all crashes, right, that we want to see all crashes, regardless if they're limited access or not, you'll see all of these, all the statistics will update. So this went up from 4832 to 5743. It'll also show visually on here. The heat map will update. All these charts on the right and left will update. The posted speed by number of lanes will update and all that good stuff. So, and you can do the same thing for any of these other ones too. Now, an interesting thing that we had to work through with our consultant was figuring out how we could, if you wanted to select a certain amount of crashes around a certain location, how can you get the statistics for that information? If you click on this wrench that's on the top left, then you'll see you have two options. You have rectangle or lasso. I personally like to use a lasso tool because not all of our streets are north, south, east, west, right? But with this lasso tool, pretend I want to see what's happening around this intersection and just get the statistics regarding that. You left click, and then you kind of you keep your finger on the left clicker, and then you just drag your mouse around. So for instance, if I just want to capture these crashes, right, you can click that, let it load. It'll unhighlight all those other types, and all your charts and data all throughout this screen will also update. So you can see, and it might take a little bit of time. So just bear with it too. If you want to, oh, then another cool thing on here, it's, you know, for any of these bars that you see here on the charts, you can actually click these. So for instance, if I just want to see the rear end crashes happening here, you can click on the bar, left click on it, and it's only going to show you the information here, and all the other information throughout this whole dashboard will also update. If you want to get out of it, you just unclick it. You'll see, so the change here. There's a lot of information on here, so sometimes you have to give it a minute or so just to update. You want to unclick it, you can just click this X, and it should clear all the filters. For some of that information that you saw on the splash screen, you can also go to the About section. You can click on, this will give you a high level view of what you're able to do. Something we are currently underway with is we are going to be incorporating the 2023 data into this crash dashboard. We only had 2018 to 2022 because when we did our safety analysis, that was just the data that was scrubbed at that time and cleaned up and processed. So we're going to be including the 2023 data, hopefully by the end of May, hopefully sooner. We're also going to have the capability. There are going to be a few new charts that we're going to have displayed. We're going to have local roads or the jurisdictional type of roadway information, the crashes split by those. We're going to have the roadway context classification splits, as well as a functional classification splits. Sorry. But yeah, and the heat map, just to show, if you wanted to see what happens on the heat map and how that updates, let's say you just want to see where the alcohol related crashes are happening. It'll automatically update on your screen here. And if you want to zoom out, then you can see where they are. Exactly. And if you need to take screenshots or anything, all of these here has this little 4 caret thing that's shown. So like, for instance, on the map, if you're not able to see what you want, you can click that and it'll expand. It'll expand it to full screen, and then you can unclick that. It'll show up there. See if it shows up. There it is. But yeah, just besides. Okay, so Sal, if you want to see what's happening in your city, I'm just gonna clear everything. So I'm just actually just gonna restart this crasher. I'm just gonna reload the page. I can take all the filters off. Okay, so let's see. If we go to Miramar, bam. So it's gonna show just these here. And all the statistics, see, Sal in your city, 267 KSIs that happened in 2018 and 2022. Oh, well, one other thing I forgot to show you is the layers. So for instance, if you want to see some of the things like, oh, where's the high risk network? Where's the high entry network? You can go to the layers here. You can turn on the high risk network. You can also turn on the demographic priority areas, as well as the municipal boundaries. So if you just want to see where crashes are relative to your neighbors or where they are visually, or the city, and you can also turn those off just by clicking on this. You can do the same thing with the heat map. See, so for your city, this is what your heat map is. It looks like there's a lot of stuff happening east of you for whatever reason. But yeah, is there did I miss anything, James? I think I got everything right this time. Questions? Yes, very good.
So I'm kind of speechless seeing what you put together. And it's the amazing information is incredible. So how would the cities be paying attention to this now? How do we get the attention into the cities, and the awareness, the tremendous information? So what's their interest?
Yeah, so one reason why we decided to pursue doing this dashboard was James and I and our county partners and our consultant, we looked at a lot of different dashboards all around the country. And we tried to figure out, what was helpful and what kind of information is present and what was not helpful. And what we found was a lot of the dashboards around the country had information that they wanted to provide the user, but it didn't allow you to customize what you wanted to visualize. So that's why we decided to move forward with our dashboard to work this way, where almost everything is customizable. It's processing all the data for you on the back end. So you can actually see exactly what you want to only visually see. One helpful tool that I think I used with someone from the city of Fort Lauderdale was they presented as like, oh, there's this type of crashes that are occurring at this type of intersection in my city. Why you're not doing anything about it? It's like the worst one in the whole in the whole county, for instance. So you can actually go into here, you can click on, it's like, oh, is this really is red light running crashes the worst type of crash that's occurring at this intersection, for example? So you can just turn on that layer, you can see how it compares to other places, you can see how it compares just in your respective city. And instead of making, instead of having to create an opinion without having the information to support it, this might be a good place where this information is really easily, readily available, that you can factually respond back to many of the residents if they do perceive that there's an issue occurring at a location. The one caveat to this is we are only processing this data once a year. So every time we bring in a new data set, we process it about 9 months after it becomes available, or 9 months after the end of the last year. So we're hoping using that schedule that, this data should be, if I had to assume, over 90% accurate in terms of the types of crashes that were coded, the finalization of the police reports. Not every single thing is also going to be finalized. There could be some things that do change, since processing continuously occurs at the state level with Signal 4. But yeah, I mean, James and I, what we're going to continue to do, we are, as part of this effort, going to be doing a roadshow. So we are going to be going around the county, and we're going to try to educate and showcase this tool. So hopefully it can, not just be used by us, but it can also be easily used by our municipal partners. And then you don't have to do all the post-processing on your own, because right now you have to go on Signal 4, download the whole data set and that takes like an hour or two before you can even provide an answer. This way you can quickly go to this tool. It's available online and be able to respond, quickly and efficiently before you decide if your next 2 hours is worth going down the rabbit hole of answering, whatever concern someone might have.
And this is James, if I
Yeah.
could add.
Oh.
Sorry, if I could add. So the data sets, we're going to get the 23 data in shortly, and then the 24 data will have August, September, and again on an annual basis updated. There are some dashboards we saw across the country where they would update it like daily or weekly. That requires a certain level of effort, and also the data is not necessarily clean or clear. There can be mistakes with it. So that's why we wait and do it on an annual updated basis. At a city level, we have like Milos, Sal, Carol, Daniela. You might want more information. We wanted the dashboard to do what it does well, but it's not going to do everything. And so at a city level, what we recommend is use this to kind of establish what it is that you need to know. And then if you need more information, either if you have access to the Signal 4 data or we can help you get that, you can then dive into more detail on what's going on in a particular area. But this, as Fazil said, this is a way to really quickly get a lot of information and analysis. We had 4 cities this past year apply for Safety Action Plan funds. And some of them wanted to, do some of this analysis and at the federal level, they wanted us to avoid duplication of effort. So this is a way that they can get a lot of information quickly. It's not everything, but I was going to swear, but it's a darn good start, so that's important. The other thing I wanted to mention, it's not everything. So Paula, with SFRTA, the crash reporting system for rail incidents is different from Signal 4. They do death and injury. It doesn't coincide, so we don't have the rail data on here. We do have that separately. So again, dashboard is very good, but it's not everything, but it's a darn good start. Maybe that should be our motto. Dashboard is darn good. So, okay. Sal, you were going to say something.
And I think you're gonna answer my question about the goal is to how far behind on the data be on this. I know this includes up to 22, right? But and then you're gonna upload 23. But is the goal to like be like I don't know, like 9 months, 12 months just behind, like let's say Signal 4 data to eventually catch up?
Yeah, so we actually just completed this dashboard, I think like last month, right? Or two or 3 weeks ago, actually. So we're currently processing the 23 data. So we're gonna have the 23 data up soon, within the next month or so. And then in September, October of this year, we're gonna have the 24 data up. And then every year moving forward, the previous year's data will be uploaded nine months or so after the end of the last day of the previous year, December 31st of the previous year. The reason for that is Signal 4 takes about, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I think like 2-3 months to have the reports available. Then it takes a little bit more time for the reports to be scrubbed or published and whatnot. And what we've understood, it's anything after 6 months, it's generally 6 months later, the data is pretty accurate at that point. And we were trying to figure out how can we fit this post-processing process already in an MPO process that we currently have. And this actually lines up well with some of the other safety performance measures that we have to report on a yearly basis. So we were able to create the tool and everything, and this will be very seamless on our part moving forward to upload the newer data. It's just taking a little bit of time right now because we've had to start from scratch on that end.
Okay. Yeah, and I just like to mention I think it's a great tool. I actually started playing with it last week. It's very intuitive and user friendly. I'm amazed. And I was actually using it yesterday, meeting with the county. We have a street segment where we get a lot of cars that run off the road constantly, and we just had an accident this past Monday where the yeah,
So it's a crash.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So we were looking at it because for years I've been working with the county to reconstruct that segment of road, and obviously another crash happened on Monday, and I was actually, when we were meeting, I was actually showing this tool to show, hey, these crashes typically occur in the late hours, 2 in the morning, and most of them are drunk drivers. So this kind of like gives a picture of also with our police, to tell our police, hey, can you go do more enforcement in this area around this time, because this is when it seems these crashes are happening. So I thought it's a great tool. Obviously, if it can be updated with more recent data, it will help a lot more. But great job.
For sure. And one other thing that we see that hopefully this tool can be used for is for our enforcement folks, for our health folks, to maybe allocate certain types of, or to allocate the resources towards specific areas, right? Like if there's, like you said, like drunk driving happening, in this area more than other places around Broward County, for instance, then BSO can allocate the resources more towards that specific area rather than making an assumption where drunk driving, severe crashes could be occurring around other places.
So what's, I think about a report back mechanism. So if the police are looking at where there are drunk driving crashes, and will that necessarily mean that there's going to be more reported? And I guess flip side is that they can be there and stop the drunk drivers before they crash, that's where some of that safety will come in. I did want to go back though to why we're doing it on an annual basis. Every year, Paul Flavian on our team with the as a data manager will go through and he has to clean the data and make sure that the coordinates are the geographic coordinates are correct and all these different things. And so and then there's also cleanup at the Signal 4 level where they get new information and they do their adjustments. So that's where we wait to do a data pull down till usually September of the following year. That's partly why we have 2018 to 2022, because as we started the study, the 23 data wasn't ready to look at. So we want to make sure that we have good, solid data. And again, we'll update it on an annual basis, which is in line with the other performance measures that we do at the MPO. You can always pull out the new reports through Signal 4 and others, but this provides that analysis of the trends and different, characteristics if you want to do that analysis.
For sure. And especially at like the local agency level, like if you all wanted to undertake a safety action plan on your own and you wanted to undertake, certain corridors and you had to figure out, where's the worst corridors, instead of having to do the whole exercise from scratch on Signal 4, which is going to take you forever. This could be a really quick way to as a step one before you do a deep dive into specific areas. Katie?
You guys are spot on. DOT, the same thing. It's our last 5 years of like data that's been validated, verified. It takes a long time. So it's unfortunate, but it would be premature to give things too soon and it may not be accurate. So I love this. Signal 4 is kind of antiquated, right? We've been using it for years with this, showing the hotspots, all the different things. So I could see partners using it, and DOT using it. Is there, I don't know if you said this, but is there like a printout? So like you're at a public meeting or you're, in a conference room and you just have like, we're all looking at the same thing. Because if everybody starts playing with it, they all could be looking at different filters. And if you're like, this is what we want to share this story of this specific type of issue we're dealing with. Is there like a PDF printout or anything? You just do screenshots and create your own.
Screenshot
Okay, that's fine. I was just
or
curious.
Control print, it might.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Try that actually.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good job.
Just wanted
Just
to,
hold on a sec. Fazil, you said there is a way to do stuff on the back end, but it's kind of complicated. And it might, like you tried it and it blew up the system.
Yeah, so we thought about allowing for data download if you wanted to select different crashes and do the download yourself. But we found out it was crashing our website. So we took that option off, unfortunately. And we took the stance that having the website up is more important than not having it up. So sorry. Yeah. But if there is a request for the download of data in a specific area, we can always provide that. Just with the caveat, it might be more updated on Signal 4 based upon when the data was extracted.
just to Katie's point, I think maybe like a tutorial would be good. How to use the dashboard could help. I also wanted to mention, yesterday US DOT held a webinar. I don't know if you guys are on it, for the implementation grant. Yeah, so, and they did reference as well the 2018 to 22 data. So it coincides. So I just wanted to mention that, and the historical view and accuracy as well matters. So
Yeah, and from the NOFO, and if I just had to make an assumption, I believe they referenced the 2018 to 2022 data also because of I think FARS is a little bit more behind than even Signal 4 is, or FIRST, or whatever the program is called now. Because it didn't seem like that changed from last year.
yeah, they did mention FARS, and yeah, it's 2018 to 2022. So again, consistent.
And as we get more questions, I want to also ask Milos or Colleen to raise their hand if they want to say anything on Zoom. Anybody else? Comment? Daniel?
Yeah, the website looks great, and this is actually a great tool for us in the cities. So where we can focus where the crashes are happening, and it's a good opportunity to have, okay, maybe we need to focus on these roads. My question is gonna be, I think you kind of have answered, but would the high injury network analysis be updated too, as we progress and we address, some of the corridors or streets, in the future, like, would they be updated yearly too, like that analysis, or be something that it will be longer period?
So for the high injury network and high risk network, currently we update the high injury network on a yearly basis. However, we decided that that may not be the best approach, right? Because then as a city, you're not able to allocate your resources effectively, right? Because there's nothing that can happen in 1 year. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna update our safety action plan as part of our MTP update cycle, which happens every 5 years. So we are going to update the high injury network and the high risk network. I think it's like 2 or 3 years from now, because then that'll be about 5 years since we created it. So that's the approach that we're going to be taking. All right, Milos, so thanks for raising your hand. I'm gonna give you permission to speak, and then I think you can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Just wanted to take a moment and say, I mean, you guys did an awesome job. Appreciate it so much, and looking forward to further explore the dashboard. Everything looks awesome. Great work.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so before we get to the next topic, any last questions, comments? I guess give us a thumbs up if you like it so far. Yes. All right, Thomas doesn't like it, but I appreciate everyone else giving us a thumbs up. All right, so I'm gonna unshare my screen. Just bear with me for a second.
Pause, let's just do something at the control booth.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Hold on a second. There we go.
Thank you. So my name is Ren Ruiz. I'm with Urban Health Partnerships. We're a nonprofit that was brought onto this team to work on the Broward Safety Action Plan with the WSP team. And so we were in charge of the community engagement during the whole period here. So just to share a little bit about what our approach was, our timeline. So we started with hiring of community liaisons. So for those of you that are not familiar with Urban Health Partnerships, we do things a little bit different with community engagement, in which we hire from the communities in which we're going to conduct outreach, because they're experts of their communities and can really inform and guide the community outreach. So we hired some folks that have been plugged into the whole project. Now, as James mentioned, in September and October, we had the first round of meetings for the 11 corridors. So that was in 9 different communities. And then in February, we had another round of 9 meetings for a total of 18 in the same communities, right? To kind of follow up, and I'll share a little bit about that too. And then, as was also mentioned, from now through around June, potentially further than that, we'll be touring the Safety Roadshow in the communities that were not included in those priority corridor areas. So what is a community liaison? As I mentioned, these are folks that come from the communities in which we're going to conduct outreach. Now, as we've mentioned, there's 11 priority project corridors. That's 9 different communities. Now, these are happening all throughout Broward County. In this case, we hired 3 Broward County community liaisons. These were folks that live in different areas of Broward County and are familiar with sometimes of these communities, right? So we had folks that live in Hollywood, but are familiar with Dania Beach and are familiar with, Miramar and Pembroke Pines and all these, and other folks that were more familiar with the northern areas. So we hired 3. And what we did is allow them to get to know different ones. So of the 3 community liaisons, they were each assigned 3 of these communities and would go out there and conduct that community outreach in a way that felt authentic for them. So there are multiple languages that they all speak, so there's English, Haitian Creole, and Spanish. They're going out there and doing everything from door-to-door canvassing to virtual outreach with some of these folks, knowing who the business owners are and emailing them and, you know, getting in contact with whether it's community centers or nonprofits in that area and letting them know about the project activities. They're also oftentimes exploring their stakeholder, kind of doing like a stakeholder mapping exercise in which they're looking at what are their current networks and their expertises, and then kind of pushing those boundaries and going, who haven't we heard from? So that was an exercise that was done throughout this project with all of the community liaisons, in which, you know, for instance, I'll talk a little bit about Louis in a moment. Louis is very plugged in with churches in the area and is very comfortable visiting other churches and talking to that group, right? And then starting to kind of push that a little bit and go, all right, Louis, let's get you plugged in with some of the community groups and going to like other nonprofit events where there's table leaving events or something like that. You know, so that's an example of sort of going beyond their existing networks, leveraging their existing networks because there's a lot of value there, and then starting to plug them into just different folks in these particular 11 communities. They're listening to a lot of conversations. They're engaging people in one-on-ones often when they're canvassing, gathering those resident perspectives. And so they're hearing all sorts of stuff that we've recorded and been providing to the project team. That is just feedback in general about roadway safety in their area. They're able to get to a very granular, specific, you know, circumstances of what they're observing every day in those roadways. So from these conversations, we've been learning, for instance, that a lot of seniors, right? Like the thing we kept hearing was, when it gets very dark, I'm now scared to drive at night and I'm losing my independence. And I don't like that. How can we brighten these roads, right? That's one thing we kept on hearing. We kept on hearing about the extreme heat of people waiting at the bus stops or pedestrians. And, you know, in some communities, it would look a little bit different. So that if in one roadway, the biggest issue there was jaywalking because the blocks are so long, in another community, it might have been, man, that right turn, it needs to slow down. There's a school right there. People aren't stopping, you know, et cetera. So it allowed us to be able to really pinpoint things that were going on, share that with the team, record it, and also be able to bring that back at the second round of public meetings to go, here's what we've been learning through all of these conversations. Here's what we've been exploring. Here, take a look. Is this reflective of our conversations in the past? And then the other thing too is, you know, they were plugged into a lot of the things happening with like the decision-making and the advocacy that was happening around the Broward Safety Action Plan. Everything from how these public meetings should look, what would make them more inclusive, to invite people and welcome them into the space, to different ways that people can participate. So they became very familiar with the project website, for instance, to be able to share with folks, here are the different ways you can get involved. You can go here and you can map a concern anywhere in the county. You can go here and, you know, make a pledge and invite your friends to do that, you know, for roadway safety in Broward County. Or you can send, you know, an email here, or, you know, so there was a lot of different ways that they were trying to get people plugged in. So I'll share a little bit about this because I think the community liaisons are a very unique part of this project. We had two that were existing. They, as I mentioned, have existing connections to the community. A big part of that is capacity building. So we had two that were existing that had already been plugged into different kinds of mobility and transportation projects. So they knew a lot of the language that we were talking, and were able to then bring those conversations in a way that was accessible to the residents. Through that, though, in this whole timeline, they've also been learning a lot more about these different roadway safety terminologies and about what the Broward Safety Action Plan was. So a lot of it was also trying to make sure that their capacity was being built throughout this whole process. By getting integrated into the different communities, they were able to go in there and reel people, individual residents, into the co-design process by inviting them to the meeting. At the meetings, they were often having conversations with the folks that were attending to make sure that they knew how to interact with the different activities that we were presenting them there, and engaging them in that way. And then, of course, you know, all of that leading to hopefully what, you know, we call them policy systems and environmental changes, but really these were changes that were impacting the decision-making for the Broward Safety Action Plan. So I'll share a little bit about the three community liaisons. There's Louis Lormio, who is, he's from the Dania area. And he speaks Haitian Creole, he speaks English as well, and he's very plugged in, often with a lot of the churches in the area. And he's also very good at like graphical and video, and like he was often taking pictures at the meetings. He is very comfortable like getting into any community group and talking to them. So he was going on his own to meet with folks that he knew like were teachers and talking to their students. And so that was a way that he was leveraging his existing networks. So Brittany is somebody who has worked with us before for quite some years now. And she is in the plantation area, I believe, and is knows a lot of the different nonprofits, has been with us doing a lot of the coalition building with the other nonprofits, and so got very plugged in with talking to community partners, emailing other nonprofits, visiting their meetings, and sharing about what the whole process was. She was also often leading a lot of the virtual outreach to businesses along the corridors, doing a lot of that research about, all right, who's directly on there and how can we make sure that they know about the meetings. And then Carlos, he speaks Spanish and English. He has had done a lot of work with the census and with AARP, doing a lot of canvassing, and was very great, like boots on the ground kind of guy, visiting a lot of door-to-door just businesses, talking to them, talking to especially a lot of the Spanish-speaking businesses. When some of the other community liaisons couldn't, we would, send out Carlos to go and speak with them. So those are the three that have been plugged in throughout the year. All right, so I shared a little bit already about like what they were talking about with each of, when they would go out and do the canvassing. So one thing is they were, of course, sharing about the public meetings. As I mentioned, we were trying to make sure that these meetings were very welcoming, inclusive. So with that, they were often going out there and talking to people about what the meeting will be like, because a lot of times people have an idea of what a public meeting will be like, right? And in a traditional sense, a lot of people don't really get excited about it. They're like, oh, I'm going to go sit there. It's going to be my dinner time. Like, I got to figure all this stuff out. So they were going there and trying to get rid of those barriers by sharing what it would be like that we were doing to address those things, right? So making sure that they knew, hey, it's going to be interactive. It's not just going to be people talking to you. There's going to be opportunities for your input to actually shape what's happening, and trying to explain a little bit about what that intent was and what some of the activities were. They were talking about how there would be food there. There'd be dinner there. We know it's dinner time. Like, come, you don't have to worry about that. And there'd be some children's activities that could help occupy kids. If they've got kids, bring them and just, have something there available, for you to not have to worry about that. They were often talking about the project information objective. People hadn't heard what the Broward Safety Action Plan was, so they became very versed in being able to talk about the project, why it was happening, why in their corridor, and share that with the folks that they were interacting with. And then, of course, as I mentioned, talking about the project website and all the features that are interactive on there. So what were the main concerns that we heard? So throughout this process, the community liaisons engaged 178 individuals throughout Broward County. And I want to share, that's one-on-one conversations. That's actually going out there and hearing from somebody, talking in small groups, talking individually. And we go beyond that if we're looking at who we dropped off flyers to, dropping off flyers to the pizza joint and to the, tax office and whoever. But one of the things we were hearing about was, let me see here. The feedback we heard. Apologize about the first bullet there, but concerns over speeding and aggressive driving was probably the number one thing we heard throughout all of the different corridors. They were learning about specific locations of crashes and near misses. And near misses are something that, we hear a lot about. They end up in crashes, but there's a scale there of like, this is where it's always almost happening too. So they were sharing stuff like that. Like, we were literally sometimes like on, the road talking, and we'd see the behavior happening right in front of us. One time we observed an actual crash happen in Deerfield. So that's the kind of stuff we were hearing from them, is they would point to us and tell us and show us, hey, you see that? That's what we're seeing. We're seeing that all the time. And then why those things are happening. They're trying to get from the school to this turn. They're trying to get to the highway. They're trying to get to this, lane on this side. And so we would learn a little bit about what that behavior and why that behavior is taking place. And then sometimes we were learning about where specifically they think speed control should be happening on the corridor and why, where repairs are needed to the infrastructure, and what are the specific challenges that they're experiencing or observing as a pedestrian or bicyclist or sometimes a transit user. Some other things we had been hearing, I mentioned older adults. That's, that stood out a lot to me during this whole process because I feel that for that losing of independence, but that's something we heard a lot. Extreme heat while walking to the transit stops. A desire for more signalized pedestrian crossings was there a lot in the comments. Right turn conflicts with pedestrians who have the right of way, right? And like, hey, I'm supposed to be able to walk. And I'll share that a lot of people were very excited about the delayed red, allowing for pedestrians to get a head start in crossing the crosswalk. I think there was a lot of positive feedback about that. About ways to close the gaps or expand pedestrian and biking networks. A lot of people, were sharing about, I'm walking or I'm biking and then suddenly it ends, and then not having that connection to being able to close those gaps. And then need for longer pedestrian crossing times or a need for increased regulation of e-scooters and e-bikes, with people sharing that those become obstacles in their path. So this is just some like images from the 18 public meetings. That's our team there in the middle. But, you can see there that we were doing over the table type discussions, interacting, doing post-it notes, markers and all that to mark up all these different conceptual plans and explore with them. You'll see images there of the presentations that we were giving on what the project was, and then the interactive boards for them to really look and understand and have discussions about the various safety countermeasures that were being explored through these conceptual plans. So just to kind of give an overall about what are the different ways that we did outreach activities, some of the strategies we did. So we, as many of you know, we've reached out to a lot of the city staff asking for coordination with sharing the posts about the meetings, to put it on social media, to put it on your e-blasts. So we've done that. We did that for both of the rounds of public meetings. But then the community liaisons also guided a lot of the outreach materials and the strategies used, right? Whether that's, doing that stakeholder mapping and understanding, all right, this person's going to contact all the nonprofits and this person's going to contact businesses, but also what these look like. So we were making sure and, that flyers were translated into different languages. And then we were very excited when the website was made available in different languages too. So that was something that happened for this project that was aiming again to like continue to guide it towards accessibility. And then for the stakeholder mapping, so just highlighting some of the groups that we had been able to reach, that we were focusing on: community centers and libraries, since they're very plugged in, HOA and civic organizations in the specific neighborhoods of the priority project corridor areas, community forums. So with that, I mean stuff like Nextdoor and Facebook groups that were particular to certain areas, like, I forget the name of it, but like Margate Friends and, all of these different community, what's happening in Wilton Manors and Oakland Park and all that. Businesses, churches on the corridor. So literally sometimes I meant visiting churches on Sundays and having an opportunity to just speak with folks afterwards. Businesses, like I mentioned, that was more canvassing or sometimes email, depending on where they were. Some of the other community groups, I know we discussed a lot and shared a lot with Better Streets Broward, so that's a very robust group of citizens that are getting plugged into a lot of the public meetings happening. So they stayed very in tune with us as we shared when those opportunities were arising for them, and they attended quite a bit. And then schools, colleges, and universities. So making sure to share information where we could with FAU and with NOVA, older adult groups and centers. So visiting the senior centers, or our organization also helps manage a lot of age-friendly initiatives. And so we were able to bring that actually at one point to one of the senior advocacy groups. I forget the name of it, but we attended like a meeting that was South Florida based for older adults to share about this. And I mentioned that it's multilingual, and that again, it was like a combination of both virtual and analog type of outreach. Okay, so we do have the Safety Roadshow is sort of the next step out in this, in which we're going to be talking about the safety dashboard and the now adopted executive plan, and talking to people about it, sharing everything about this whole process that's been happening, this whole project that's been happening over the past year and some. And so the two events that we've got coming up, and there will be more, but right now We will be there this Saturday at the Autism Family Fun Day in Pompano Beach at the Youth Sports Complex. So if you have an opportunity to go to that. And then Earth Fest and Sunrise. So more dates will come, but I do have here my phone opened up to take notes, because if you have any events that you can think of, especially if they're very aligned in with roadway safety in some way, then we want to hear about it. You guys are much more plugged in to your particular area networks than we are. So it's always helpful to hear from you what events you know of, especially if they align in that way. We are eyeing we're eyeing the Public Safety Forum by Broward Sheriff's Office, and Sunday Jazz Brunch, in which FDOT will be sharing some stuff. So there's some other events we're already eyeing and looking into and trying to get plugged in, but you guys are of course a great wealth of knowledge with that as well. So, and I think that was my last slide. I'll circle back to the events to hear from you all, but I'll just finish out here a little bit about what's going to happen at the Safety Roadshow. So we'll be providing the project pamphlets. So there's some in the back there that just shares a lot of like the KSI data and the whys of why this project is happening, what was being done. We'll be sharing the postcards also that provide a link to the website that allow you to go and take a pledge to map your concern. We'll be doing activities for adults and teens, including that pledge on paper. Sometimes if there's like older adults that prefer to not use the technology like we've got, or for youth. Safety pledge, the dedication, all the stuff that's online, but as well, we've purchased some impairment goggles to just mimic what it's like to have a blood alcohol content that's, above the limit in Florida, and to just do some activities revolving around that. So like walking the line or trying to pick up something, from the floor with them. And then, just some activities for kids. You might have seen the MPO do before a Draw Your Dreams tree. It's like these, coloring sheets of a roadway that then get put together to create one large street with every kid's contribution to that, and those get hung up on the tent. So we'll be doing that as well, where there's a tent. Let me see if there's anything else. Okay, so before I leave here now, I would love to hear if you do know of any events, and if not, I would love to give you my contact info so you can share. If anybody has anything now, that's awesome. Or if you have any questions too. Yes.
I'm familiar with an organization called the Central Beach Alliance in Fort Lauderdale. I think they're having a meeting coming up, maybe too soon, but I can send you some information on it. It involves all the condominium associations in Broward. Steve Glassman is the district commissioner there, so. And Bill Brown. So it's just a thought. I had mentioned it to Christina, she knows. So I'm going to have to excuse myself. Is that okay? I have to leave. James.
Yeah.
Okay. So nice to meet you.
We're glad you're here. So that's.
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a really quick question, which is a lot of these projects and the plan itself are going to have to go back to the cities or to the county commission to eventually get voted on and approved. They're probably going to have to do another round of public outreach whenever it goes to the agenda, the respective agendas they have to vote on. Will it be made very clear that this plan already had extensive public outreach and that you've had a lot of public comments from the HOAs, the civic associations? Because I don't want them, when it goes to an elected official, for them to think that this came solely from staff and they have to take only, whatever gets said at the public meeting where they're voting. I want them to be made aware that there's already hundreds of comments.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to talk about that in the next couple sections today. I don't remember if it's on this one or the next part, but we will be touching a little bit on that. So the big thing is that when we are going to be going in front of commissions, especially for those 11 priority corridors, we are going to lay out all the public outreach that was done. The good thing is we did do it with the local municipalities and their staff. And we did an extensive outreach to try to get as many residents and whatnot involved. And we did 2 rounds of public outreach, which sometimes it's a little bit uncommon. Sometimes it's just one. So we're hoping all of our efforts done as of now will hopefully be able to be supported by the commissions when we do present or when we do go to them for a resolution of support.
And I'm thinking back on the meetings, we had a lot of elected officials attending too, which was good. And we did share the information, the city's staff shared information, so. Carol, you brought some of your people, I remember.
The one thing that I'm thinking about is, as we talk about funding some of these projects and moving them forward. More than once, I've had a project that I've done public outreach on, that when I've submitted for funding, I was told that outreach was not adequate and I needed to go back out. And as timeframes expand, as we start to implement these projects, I think that from a standpoint of cities, we're probably still gonna run into that. Because for instance, if I walked into my city council 2 years from now and asked them to fund a piece of one of these projects, might very well look at me and say, okay, your outreach is 2 years old. What has changed? So I do think that that is a hurdle that we could come across. Like, it's really nice to be able to move some of these projects along quickly enough that, you know, there's not a perception of the information being stale. So.
And if I could add, sorry, Katie. That's one of the problems with the MPO funding cycles. So we want a resolution of support to get it in a document that then gets it in line to get funded for design. And then the design's 5 years out, and then the actual construction's 2 or 3 years after that. And so we try to build into our processes as a project is moving forward and getting ready for design, maybe in the 3rd year, do some outreach to the community before the design starts and say, now is the time to go back to your communities and say, this is coming up. Remember, we talked about this, and then get additional feedback. Yeah, but it's.
That is, and we run into it in Plantation all the time. We've done a lot of outreach in the last few years, talking about projects from the MMTP in preparation for CSLIP and other funding applications.
Yeah.
And projects that necessarily have not rated high enough to get funding. We've been back to the same communities, talking about the same projects that still aren't funded for 3, 4, 5 years. They're sick of us. They're looking at us saying, we don't even want to hear from you again until you put a shovel in the ground. So that's the corollary to it.
Yeah, yeah. But at least they can't say you,
You know,
at least they can't say they didn't hear
right.
about it. So that's the flip side.
they're frustrated. We're frustrated. You know, unfortunately, while there's money floating around out there, there's not enough to build everything.
Katie?
Gonna add to that, if any of these become DOT projects, you know, we have a formal public process, and I think the big caveat would be like, everything you saw before was very conceptual in nature. This is updated information, and this is what we really want to go with. So we can pitch it that way, coming back again. But for the events, I have on my calendar that right now, currently DOT is maybe planning on being at Cooper City Safety and Health Fair. So you said something that aligns with safety. And there's a bike rodeo supposedly on that day on May 17th. Thank you. That might be something to look at.
Yeah. And Paula got us in touch with Rashara, the community traffic safety team.
Okay.
So no, I'm good. Yeah. And I guess you cross-referenced, right? The emails came from both of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Brashar is my consultant for safety that Paula used to sign the timesheets for. Small world.
World, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but
So I think she gave a list of things that we're considering.
yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I talked a little with Ren before the meeting. We're interested in the return on investment of our time. So a year ago, we thought maybe we host these big events and say, everybody come talk about safety, which I don't know how many people we'd get. And so the idea is, rather than look at having us organize an event by ourselves, we're looking at piggybacking on other events that are going on. That's the first part. The second then is, which of these events are going to help us reach some of our different goals and get the greatest return on investment. So for example, some of the things we talked about with Ren and Christine, there's an Easter event. People are probably more concerned about chocolate than safety at that event. But there's one about Mothers Against Drunk Driving. That's probably a really good one because people are there and going to be thinking about safety. There are back to school events in the fall. That's probably a good time. So looking at some of those, and just a slight correction, we're looking to have this go beyond just June. We're having it go into the summer and fall also. So, and we also want broad geographic distribution. Sal, not to pick on you, but your commissioner, who is the chair of the Broward MPO, wrote and said, how come there aren't any priority corridor meetings in Southwest Broward? Go, well, fortunately, you don't have as bad safety statistics as other parts of the county, but we do want to come back with our road shows. And so we want to make sure that we're hitting some of the communities that we didn't hit previously.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, we got 40 minutes to go over 2 sections. Hi there, happy spring. Wore my spring dress. We're feeling new and alive and safe, right? So we're going to talk about path to adoption real quick, and then we'll get into implementation. As we mentioned last week, April 10th, the executive plan was adopted unanimously by the MPO board. Very exciting. So thank you again. Following that, our plan is to this fall go to the Broward County Commission for adoption, and then do any updates to include the other deliverables that James mentioned this morning in September. So we have the full package adopted by the MPO board and the Broward County Commission. And then in the fall, we would love for all of our city agencies to also adopt the plan. So it'll be available. So please tell your friends. Let's get this thing unanimously adopted. Take action. So really just wanted to hit on kind of all the agencies that were identified in the plan that can use the safety action plan. Of course, law enforcement is part of it at city, county, and the state level through FHP. Our health partners are a big part of action through Broward Health, Memorial Health, and the Department of Health. Our transportation agencies, of course, been working with FDOT, the county, and all the city agencies, as well as our transit provider, Broward County Transit, our rail operators, and owners, FDOT, SFRC, FEC, and Brightline, been working with. Lighting is a huge part of action on this plan. And so really thinking about who not only builds our lighting, but also maintains our lighting, including FPL. And then our school board is another partner. A lot of the infrastructure, as we found out, the school board really maintains what's inside the school property, and the adjacent right-of-way is maintained by the city or the county or the state, right? So the school board is more of a partner of like identifying the needs, but the transportation agencies adjacent are the ones that are really doing the roadway improvements of how to get people safely to and from the school itself. So just kind of wanted to let you know, is this a holistic list? Any other agencies that we need to target? And then specifically just letting you know that if you have people like, I'm sorry, Sal, you're getting picked on today. I can see you. Like your police force, if you could make them aware of this opportunity, if there's other health partners that you have. So really thinking about who we can share this beautiful document. It's only 40 pages. It's really short. It's succinct, pretty easy to read. So anybody that we can share this with, as Fazil noted, you go to safestreets4broward.org and click on download safety action plan, and you will have your own copy. So really easy to share. I'm really excited, but it's going to take all of you as our liaisons to the community to help spread the word and bring awareness. As Marianne mentioned, like we really need you to actually spread the awareness about the actions that we need to take, right? So what other tools do we have, and more coming soon? The website, of course, we've been preaching. The executive plan is available. I also have the safety pamphlet. We printed out new ones. They're in the back, so please take them. This is a pretty easy overview of kind of why we're doing the plan, what the issues are, and kind of what the outcomes are, and then the schedule. So please take some of these. This is also available for download on the resources tab of the website. So you can print these and hand them out to all your friends. Maybe for Halloween, you can like print them out, and this can be your trick or treat. How about that? We'll get creative. Also, other resources to all our cities. Of course, we have the website. But in addition to that, we're going to have a quick build guide, the 1,000 Little Things, the Safe Streets Design Manual. So those are coming soon. Because this is your last official meeting, I just want to make sure that everything will be loaded on the website. And of course, social media through Broward MPO will be posting updates. So if you could just stay plugged in after today through the website, through Broward MPO social media, you should be able to stay informed. So thank you. So I'm going to move into implementation. So how do we make action within the action plan? Of course, we adopted the 2050 in April. We'll adopt with the county in the fall. Next thing we need to do is we need to add the Broward Safety Action Plan projects to our 2050 MTP. That's planned to happen this fall as well, so that those can get put in the pipeline, as Carol mentioned, for future funding. We also wanted to make sure that you know that we understand you're doing your local city budgets to be adopted this fall. So we have the HIN, the HRN, the dashboard available to help inform your capital improvement programs that are happening and being budgeted right now. So we'd love for you to use those resources now. This fall, late summer, we're going to have the Safe Streets Design Manual. So as you start looking at what projects and what improvements and how much they cost and things like that, we're going to have that manual available so it can inform your projects, hopefully as soon as this fall. So I'm hoping in the fall, you're going to get your new money and you're going to have a new manual and you're going to be able to start really like integrating more safety countermeasures into each of your projects. So we have 3 buckets, policies, programs, and projects. We have 39 policies identified, 26 programs, and 57 projects identified in this little book. I want you guys to have one of these, so make sure you print one today. They're all in there. So what can we do? Year 1, we can take action, of course. We're going to get the MTP updated to add our safety projects through the MPO. Our Oversight committee meetings, as James mentioned, is going to morph, but we'll meet annually so we can work on making sure that annual report shows significant progress. We're also going to work on our local safety action plans. We're going to explore resources to implement our programs and policies through the UPWUP, through county budget. We've talked about implementing like a safety administrator, like the FDOT, like Katie is for the state, maybe having one of those for the county and for the MPO to make sure we're really keeping tabs on our progress towards 0. Our local project process, like I mentioned, we hope that you use all these resources to inform your local. Oh, did I do that? Oh, Pablo did that. Okay. Okay, sorry. Take 2. Here we go. And implement our first year, we can implement quick build projects. We're identifying 10 quick build projects. We could also do our 1,000 little things projects our first year, which are maintenance. And then obviously encourage and monitor our safety camera program, which I'll speak to more in a minute. Years 2 through 5, we want to evaluate projects. So take our before counts. If we've done like quick build projects, even do after counts. Continue implementing our projects and programs, policies and programs, excuse me. So really keeping track of that. That's the annual update and the oversight needed to make sure that we're keeping track, right? Pursue funding opportunities, not only the SS4A grants, but Safe Routes to School. We mentioned there's federal grants. FDOT has the state HSIP grants. So making sure that we're aligning all these projects with that funding so we can keep the pipeline going, right? Amend the MTP. So what priority projects can we fund in the next year of funding? And then of course, update our BSAP. Overall, we have 36 total policies, and I'm not going to read all of them. This is just a highlight of some of them, but within all our studies, we should be prioritizing killed and serious injury crashes. We need to prioritize lighting at bus stops. With BCT already has a program, so really excited to see more of those lighting improvements happening. Evaluate 20 miles per hour on local streets. A lot of national agencies are doing 20 is plenty campaigns. Jacksonville just adopted it. Which how can Jacksonville be ahead of us? So challenge, let's go. We do have some 20-mile-an-hour roads already. There's one, I was on the beach in Pompano recently, and the road that's along where the pier is marked 20. So I'm very happy. So let's keep it going. Truck guards on fleet vehicles. I know this is standard practice in the city of Fort Lauderdale, but basically it's basically a guard between the 2 tires that if you make a right turn, a bicyclist can't get pulled under the car and be killed. So it's a very simple piece of infrastructure, and it just needs hopefully to be a policy so that we don't have that happen here in Broward. Technology, advanced driver assist, emergency brake intelligent, it should be becoming standard. A lot of agencies are adding that to add safety. So there's probably agencies out there that already are doing this, but let's keep it going and keep track of it so we can call it a win. Countywide traffic calming manual is something that as the county, as our traffic reviewer, has said that, you know, each municipality kind of has their own traffic calming manual. So it'd be nice to kind of have some consistency so that the process could be streamlined. So looking into providing kind of a county adopted to make the process more streamlined. Tree maintenance to increase visibility, really talking about maintenance, and then lighting assessments in all capital improvement projects. So those are just a few. The full list is in the plan. Programs. One of our big programs is the mid-block crossing program. As Ren mentioned, we heard a lot from the community about the need for more mid-block crossings. So we did our mid-block crossing action plan and identified areas to start. So that's a big program. Emergency response, of course, is a big one. Our low stress gap program, working with our low stress multimodal master plan with the county level and identifying those gaps and prioritizing them. Our maintenance programs with lighting. Lighting, again, we did a lot of lighting research. We were out in the field a lot at night and found that we have a lot of infrastructure that just isn't on. And I don't know if that's because of theft or maintenance or what, but I really believe that the maintenance, if we could just get it turned on, it would help a lot of safety. So that one is prioritized as well. Continue to expand our rail safety enforcement and education, our speed limit program, our corridor signal timing, looking into that. We shared a really good example at FDOT on the District 1 did to retime for safer speeds, expand bike detection, lighting infrastructure, and lighting maintenance. So that's not all 29, but just a sprinkling of them to get your palette wet. We also have 57 projects identified. Here I listed them by owner. So you can see we've got many agencies that are represented, but others that are not. And we have state, county, and city streets. These are projects within not only the 11 corridors, but also within like our PED bike plan, our mid-block plan, the lighting plan. So you can see where each of these kind of lies, but it's really a broad reach of projects. And then within each of our corridors, just wanted to share that we're going to identify kind of the phases of implementation within each of the corridors so that we can identify funding and then maybe even break out those quick actions. So I don't know, can we put in a leading pedestrian interval to help with pedestrian safety right now? And then program out maybe some tree enhancements next year, and then program out a bigger project, a capital project in a few years, right? So really like identifying those short-term wins. So that'll be part of our deliverables for the 11 corridors so that we can break out and hopefully take action in a phased approach. So just wanted to touch really quick on our safe speeds and post-crash care items within the dial. Really excited about kind of how do we partner enforcement for safer speeds. As we talked about, safer speeds is a huge part of improving safety and decreasing the severity of crashes in Broward. So kind of ask these three questions, like how can the Broward Safety Action Plan support enforcement? What is the status of our school speed camera programs in Broward, and what are the grant opportunities? So I think Sal set me up with the dashboard is awesome. And I had a conversation with the county and, you know, my PD about, you know, whatever. So that was a great segue to this. We really believe that by having all the analysis that we've done through this project, that we've identified the high injury network, we've identified where the specific types of crashes are happening, so it can inform enforcement. We understand that our enforcement resources are pretty limited for traffic enforcement within our agencies. And so how do we target those limited resources to save the most lives, right? So really sharing these resources, HIN, HRN, the safety dashboard, all those things to really educate and inform where those limited resources are being used, I think is really, really valuable. Another tool that we have is around school zones. I keep hearing that a big part of the traffic enforcement time is spent in school zones, both morning and afternoon, right? So maybe a third of their day is spent in school zones. So, but they still don't have enough staff to do all the schools because we have like 300 schools in Broward, right? And so how can we use these maps to inform where to send those limited resources, right? So hopefully we can share these things and make the best decisions. We have also identified the top 5 crash types so that if they wanted to do specific crash oversight, left turn crashes are huge. And again, I'm just gonna point to this so you can use it, but we have this that shows, so you can like open it up and be like, okay, with my sergeant, left turn crashes are the highest. And really look at the high injury network and then identify, you could actually go on the dashboard, click high injury network on city of whatever, city of Fort Lauderdale, and then left turn crashes, and all the areas with left turn crashes will populate, right? So then you could do targeted enforcement for left turn crashes using the map. So really using the tools that we have to really inform how we proceed, right? Wanted to give a quick update. I was able to interview the city of Hollywood. I understand there's about 5 cities that are doing cameras within the county. I'm sure there's more. City of Hollywood seems to be the only one right now that has cameras actively on. So just wanted to kind of share what I heard from them. They have 11 school zones that are actively being enforced right now, 3 more that are in the warning phase. They're doing a 30-day warning phase before they do active enforcement. 4 that are in final construction, just waiting for sign off, and then 5 more that are being permitted. And those are going through the state and the county permitting process. So taking a little bit longer. So in total, they have 23 they hope to have on board by the end of the year. Each ticketing, let's go through that. Ticketing is happening at 11 miles an hour over during the flashing hours, right? And then it's also happening at 11 miles over posted speed between flashing hours, right? So they're able to ticket all day at 11 over posted. Each ticket is $100 citation. It doesn't matter how much over. If you're going 11 over, if you're going 20 over, you're still getting a $100 ticket. And they've seen in the 11 school zones that are on, they've seen a 91% reduction in speeding 11 and over, right? So they did a before count before they turned them on and then after, and that's what they found. How are these programs being funded? I understood that they procured vendors, and correct me if anybody else has camera program, but they procured a vendor who basically said the vendor will pay for the infrastructure. And then the vendor basically takes on any, what do you say? Like not profits, but like any income that they get from the tickets. So it's all housed within the vendor. The city has to provide the officer to review the camera program, but they're not paying for the infrastructure. So the vendor takes on the infrastructure and the ticketing process, and the city has to basically work on the permitting and get it through commission and things like that, and then provide an officer to do the review. So that's basically, I understand the funding, how it's set up. So, oh yes, please. Use your mic. Sorry, please.
Municipal that doesn't have a program in place. Citation took the lead with the procurement co-op, and we do have a piggybackable bid out there. If anybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Carol. All right. So another note on enforcement, kind of what are the grant opportunities? FDOT has a high visibility enforcement grant. Does anybody get this grant here? No. When I was at the city of Fort Lauderdale, we got 2 grants a year. We got a lot. And we created, the transportation department created this ticket on the right. That's the front and the back. And if you want to steal it, I can provide the PDF to you. But it basically was an education piece. If you can see on the very top, it showed the violation costs for pedestrian, bike, and driver. And this is a little dated, so it's probably more expensive now. But it was more of an education piece when they did the high visibility enforcement to say, if you do get caught driving, I can't read the speed. Let's see, something in a stop sign, running a stop sign, $165. You know, you would know that the next time, you're not going to get a warning, you're going to get a ticket and it's going to cost you that. So hopefully it'll change your behavior. And then of course we put the stats on the front and the back as well. And it's the same size as a real ticket. So that's what made it, I don't know, pretty cool. So encouraging, like if you wanted to do this with your high visibility enforcement or something like that, I'd be happy to share this. So that's a really good grant to get. Another one we heard about that was very successful was the Operation Lifesaver grant that they did along the rail, BSO did along the rail line, where they went out and did a really heavy blitz for 30, was it 30 days or 90 days? I think it was 30 days. And then they saw for 3 more months, there was 0 fatalities on the rail after they spent 30 days blitzing. So really, really effective. So I didn't know if there was other grant opportunities that others wanted to share. But I think there's money out there. The FDOT CTST is a really great group that talks about safety and opportunities with our PD, our community PD. Katie, you want to say something?
Back in February was our deadline for submitting for highway safety plan grants, which covers motorcycle safety, speeding, work zones, all of that. So we'll find out probably by like September, October, what agencies are being awarded that grant. And I have the information of who was awarded last year that's still working on theirs actively.
Is that different than the visibility?
Yeah, the visibility is specific to ped and bike,
Right.
and it's based on the top 25 corridors in the state. Only certain municipalities are approved for that specific
see.
grant. And that's run through UNF,
Okay.
our state safety office. Usually in June, they do like a road show where the different municipalities that are on that list, their law enforcement has to go to a mandatory training.
So the one you just mentioned again was what?
Highway safety plan grant. Yeah. And there's quite a few for sure. So I'll give you guys that information.
And that's for enforcement or that's for,
A little bit of everything. So it may require, every grant's going to be different. It may require public outreach, news announcements. Yeah, enforcement. Get it right? Yeah.
do you know the dollar amount associated with that, like the grant? No.
No, and it will be,
Let me, yeah, I'd love to find out more and I'll bring that back to the, at least the technical working group next month.
yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you so much. All right. So there's money out there is the bottom line.
I had a question, go back if you could. Question for Carol. What Christine was saying about the funding, that there are vendors that set it all up and then they get the revenue. 2 questions for you. One is that I'm aware of certain situations where there's revenue that would go to the municipality too. Not specifically for the camera enforcement, but for others. So I'm just wondering if that's part of it. And then second, if they're very effective at getting people to reduce speed, there's going to be diminishing revenue. And I don't know how they could continue to operate if there's no, if people quit speeding. Anyway, any thoughts?
Those are all valid questions. I've worked in cities where frankly, anytime we had a road closed for, repairs or construction or whatever else, our residents were all over social media saying that it was, a city campaign to drive ticket enforcement and increase city revenue. I think everybody in this room knows that tickets are not a major revenue source for cities. Long term, I don't know how they think all these camera programs are going to work. For the time being, based on the numbers Christine brought out, it looks like there's certainly plenty of opportunities for improvement and additional enforcement. Getting the camera programs up and running has been a bit of a challenge. For instance, our council has indicated they don't want to go live until we get all of them ready to go. So we've been in a bit of a holding pattern because they don't all get permitted at the same time, et cetera. So we're hoping at this point now to go live in August. But there's a lot of unknowns on this. This one's a new one. And at the same time, you have the school board moving forward with the cameras on the buses for people, cutting around buses and things like that. So there's a lot going on here. How it's going to play out long term, it's probably too soon to tell. It'd be nice to think we're going to change driver behavior and put ourselves out of business. But that might be a little while.
All right. So kind of switching gears over to post-crash care, just wanted to kind of touch on how the plan supports post-crash care. In our technology plan, I created this map that you can see on the right with preemption cameras. So as you can see, the blue dots on the map are existing preemption cameras that give emergency vehicles basically a green light as they approach through technology. And we identified a few corridors that have limited preemption, you can see on the map, where we cross-reference that with the response time from our Signal 4 data. So identified some opportunities for further preemption. We also identified that we need to meet regularly with the safety team, with our county and MPO safety administrators in the future to make sure we're collaborating on an ongoing basis. One thing we often hear from the community even is that if we put in speed management infrastructure, that it might slow down emergency response. And so wanted to kind of touch on kind of how do we make that balance. And here's just a few examples. I'd love to know if you have more examples, but speed pillows or speed cushions have come out recently where large vehicles can straddle the cushions and make through on the left. In the middle, we've designed some truck aprons. This example is eastbound Broward Boulevard at Southeast 15th Avenue in the city of Fort Lauderdale, where you can see like the Mercedes is going around a raised, that's kind of hard with the shadows, but that's basically like a speed hump or apron. And the Mercedes is supposed to go around as a car, but you can see the curb line is designed for a truck. And so the truck will have to go slowly through that corner. And this was done through a pilot project with the county highway department, because Broward Boulevard right here is a county-owned road. So really piloting these things to make sure that we're improving safety. On the right, basically, can we use dedicated shared lanes for emergency vehicles? I've spoken to at least Fort Lauderdale PD. This is a picture of State Route 811, 4th Northeast 4th Avenue, where we did a buffered bike lane in repurposing to go one lane, but with 6-foot buffers and 6-foot bike lanes. And FLPD, I've talked to them like, how do you like this project? And they're like, it's great because I have my own dedicated high-speed lane if I need it. So if we have this type of infrastructure, it can double as a shared space for emergency vehicles. Another great thing is that there was a webinar yesterday that Fazal and James and I attended, sharing out from the Orlando Metro Plan Vision Zero. And they were also talking about how dedicated lanes, like bus lanes or bike lanes, can be shared as emergency vehicle space. So that's becoming kind of a standard practice, I understand, to basically share the space for the best immediate need. And then another thing, Thomas and I were talking before the meeting was, are there discussions about, even as you're sitting down and designing a street, are there areas maybe where you could make a median mountable or put in a cut through so that if there's an area of like known congestion where the fire truck could maybe cut over and go the wrong way to get around that area? So just wanted to kind of open that up and see if you have ideas or experiences where we can kind of balance. Are you having these same conversations with your fire leadership, your fire chiefs? Okay, nobody's having these problems. Okay, good. Okay, so we don't need to figure it out, but I just wanted to share these opportunities. Okay.
The picture on the right of the dedicated share lanes, that's the first time I've seen that. I really like that concept, except for the fact that we get a lot of complaints that we need protected bike lanes. So we're currently trying to come up with a master plan in District 4 of what would a protected bike lane look like on our state highway system that we would do, like, because there's a lot of different options.
Of course.
And so that would completely be opposite of this.
So on the webinar yesterday, San Francisco was sharing how they're collaborating directly with the fire department. And they talked about how if they create two-way cycle tracks, that it's wide enough for a vehicle. And then if you put in a raised element, you just put like you you don't put something vertical in it. You put in like a raised curb with maybe concrete, and then they can straddle it, similar to the speed pillows,
Okay.
right? So they can straddle the raised, let's say median, let's say, or separator, but maybe not have a vertical pole, right? So really getting creative with the infrastructure so that we can balance the needs, but still allow emergency response. So I appreciate you thinking about that, though.
I want to add that one of the options that we have used in the city of Tamarack is for runabouts that are a little bit smaller to force people to actually slow down, which it was brought up the issue, okay, how the fire truck is gonna pass by. We just make it a mountable curb, sorry, through it, so they can just easily go through it. Just another.
The middle of it is mountable? Oh,
Exactly.
wonderful.
I'm sorry, I just have to say it. The
Yeah.
risk manager in me
Yes.
is a little concerned here as we talk about putting emergency vehicles on bike ped facilities and going in opposite directions. I see enough crashes where we have emergency vehicles with lights and sirens operating and other drivers not yielding. The idea of doing something like that just scares the dickens out of me.
Yeah, think another part about the webinar was the type of road that you have, right? Like you're not going to do it on a 6-lane roadway. You shouldn't do it around a rail crossing. Maybe for lower speed roadways, I'm sure they already do it, probably like for a neighborhood or those type, but not. I don't believe any of the examples was like major, like collectors or arterials, right?
Right, but we're proposing speed management on arterials because that's where the highest KSIs are happening. So how do we have, the point is like, how do we have those conversations about balancing the infrastructure? One thing that came up with the new raised crosswalk design was, I worked with FDOT District 5 a couple years ago, and they basically extended the tabletop to be 24 feet wide because the fire truck can have both tires on the top without bottoming out. Does that make sense? So it's a more gentle top. And so instead of being just 12 feet wide, they made it 24 feet wide with the gentle tapers. So the latest FDM allows those tapers to happen at the speeds that are appropriate. So really having those discussions, as we know, like the infrastructure guidance is being updated regularly. I think we talked about lighting is being updated, seems like biannually, because there's so much more information about safety and how we can design safer streets. And so really just kind of sharing these opportunities to have these discussions, because I don't want you to hear, no, you can't do it, and then to stop. Like, let's just get creative and learn from each other on kind of what's happening out there. I'm hoping to integrate some of this into the Safe Streets Design Manual so that you can have examples to point to when you're talking to your engineers and your fire chiefs. So just wanted to kind of share this information. If you have more information, I would love to hear from it so that we can integrate it into our design manual. And we'll keep going from there. So with that, I just wanted to just really quick, let's say I have 5 minutes, go back to the safety action plan. And if we don't have a project identified, what can we do? As we've mentioned, we have all these resources. So just wanted to really point you to all these resources within our focus plans. We've got all these actions, the safety dashboard portal, the manual, the cost benefit analysis tool is coming, the quick build guide is coming. So all these are resources so that you can take action in your community. We had to ask from one of our board members, like, oh my gosh, what can I do if the mayor calls me and says, there's a fatality last night at, Broward and Andrews, what can we do right now? What can you do, Christine? I just wanted to give you kind of a little short list of things that I thought of. So step 1, you can get the unofficial police report and just read what the circumstances were, right? What time was it? Was it a pedestrian? Was it a car? Like, what were the movements? Like figuring out kind of what happened. You can go to the safety dashboard, of course, and kind of see what the historical crash patterns have been. Number 3, you can kind of work with your police to see if you can maybe just put like a safety trailer, like a a speed radar trailer out there to get people to slow down. Maybe you do some targeted enforcement, like high visibility enforcement the next day, the next week. You also could go out in the field and just see if there's anything that could be refreshed. Is the stop bar faded? Is the light on? Is the push button working? So just kind of doing a quick assessment and sending those items off to the correct maintenance departments. You could work with your PIO staff to put out safety messaging. So always stop on red, like things, all those campaigns. Kate, I keep looking at you. The FDOT website has amazing tools for safety campaigns. So please use them. We also have a ton of tools through the safety action plan. So you can use those. So you don't need to create new tools. Just put them out there. Let's get everybody safe. Additionally, you could identify maybe some quick things you can do. Can we paint some things? Can we put up some delineators to tighten the curbs? Can we put up yield to peds turning, things like, can we put up some quick things first and then identify maybe some project opportunities long-term? So then look maybe in your CIP, do you have a project coming in the next 5 years? If so, make sure that you're cross-referencing the latest information with those improvements by using maybe the Safe Streets Manual. And then, of course, gain approval from your leadership to explore future funding and grant opportunities. So just give you just a quick list of things you can do, but this project is all about taking action, spreading the word. How can we do more to save people's lives? So if there's any other tools that you need, please let me know. We've probably created them. I just need to point you to them in the right location. So the last slide is kind of what's next. James alluded to this as your official last meeting. Within the Safety Action Plan, we put that we would meet annually with a Broward Safety Action Plan Oversight Committee to review progress and performance measures towards meeting our goal of 0 by 2050. And that includes kind of putting together a group. And so, James, I don't know if you want to mention how the invitations work, but we're thinking about first meeting in September.
So this is the last meeting on your calendars. What I'm thinking of the invitations, what I was thinking we could do is let everybody know what this first meeting would be at the end of September. We're thinking of kind of an open house oversight committee meeting. So if we think of the next meeting, September, probably the 3rd Wednesday, and we'd have the technical working group and we'd have all this kind of information out about the different corridor concept designs and different projects and all this information available. So it's kind of the last or first, kind of a final meeting for this group. And then from there, we can figure out who wants to participate in future annual reviews. Because we're not going to be ready for the annual review in September this year. It's kind of more of establishing that baseline for this first meeting. So that's what we're proposing. What I'd like to do is just invite you all. And if you come, great, and we'll ask you to do more. And if you don't, we appreciate all the work that you have done already. I, don't want to pressure anybody, but we do appreciate the perspective. So we'll see how that plays out. Any thoughts on that? Does that kind of make sense if we're looking at September? It's about 5 months away. Unless you really want to meet like in July or August. No? Good. Okay.
Yeah, and one other reason why we want to meet in September and not earlier, using the 3-month schedule, it's not just having you all participate with the technical working groups members, so we can come to a consensus of the types of activities or the types of reporting we're going to be doing, selecting the membership for the continuing of the oversight committee. But we've done I think up to date almost $4 million worth of work, and $4 million for any type of action plan is a lot of work. And there's a lot of stuff that we don't even have available on our website as of this moment. Like a lot of the stuff on the executive plan, these are just 1-pagers of a 60, 70, sometimes 80-page document. So we would like to kind of showcase all the work that all of your input has helped us achieve and finalize. Hopefully by that time, we'll be moving towards the adoption at our MPO board meeting, if we haven't already at that time, and then moving towards the adoption at the county level. Laying out all the concept plans that we put together for the corridors, right, James? the different focus plans and the different templates that you all can use to create your own projects if you don't have projects identified in your respective cities, but using that as a framework. Our safety dashboard will be updated with those additional features. We might even have the data process at that time, but we'll see. But yeah, and then moving forward, hopefully we'll have a meeting probably sometime the first official meeting with the new oversight committee that's going to meet on an annual basis, probably in early spring of every year. So I believe that's what our timeline is at the moment. Everything right? Okay.
Any thoughts, any final words from anybody? Besides, let's go up there.
I mean, I look forward for September. I'm definitely one to become engaged with this group.
Great. Keith?
One thing, perhaps of relevance, we hired a safety PIO, and I don't know if I covered that at a previous meeting. So from Quest, we now have a 40-hour-a-week person supporting us so that we can help with internal and external building the safety culture.
Great.
So at some point, we may want to plug her into helping you guys share your story and how we're supporting it. And then we do have a new CPFT coordinator. Her name's Courtney Cannon, and she previously worked for the Broward Sheriff's Office, so she may be familiar to different people in the community because she does a lot of events as well. So I just look forward to the future of us all continuing to partner together, especially with my new staff.
Yeah, and that builds on one of the programmatic recommendations about that ongoing coordination. So that's makes it even better.
For sure. And then could we because we still have some technical working group meetings that are coming up, so maybe we can try to bring that person in just for like a brief introduction. Since Tracy and some other folks are also on the technical working group from FDOT, that could be an opportunity that we could explore maybe for May or June.
Yeah, just send me an email what dates you'd want. I don't know which person you mean, or maybe both. Just to say that we're here to support, because we'd love to help any of our municipalities too if they need, assistance.
So thank you.
Something very that I find it very informative for me, at least. LinkedIn has been a way for me to get more involved with you guys and spread the word, see what's happening, everything that you guys post. So keep doing that, because I think in the meantime, if we identify something that might be important for the groups that we're connected with, that will be a good source to get all the updates.
I think that's good to know.
All right. That's all I had. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Have a great summer, and I'll see you in September, hopefully. So.
Good work.